Welcome back to Kazikon, where healing meets education. So yes, in this session, we're going to be talking about the different therapy modalities because I want individuals to be aware that we have to meet clients where they are, right? And so whether you are a client who's looking to participate in therapy for the first time, but you still feel funny about it, so you found my channel because you're trying to prep yourself for therapy, or whether you are a therapist, perhaps a new therapist, and you are taking on clients for the first time, or maybe you're a little rusty, you're returning to the field. I want to support you in your journey. I want to support everybody's mental health journey, and I want the experience to be great, right? And so I want to introduce everyone to different types of modalities and talk about different demographics or the client base that may best benefit from the different modality types. All right. And so in the previous video, I was stating that everyone is at different levels in their psychosocial journey, and people are coming to therapy because there is underlying trauma. Definition of trauma: the emotional after effects of a very triggering, unstable scenario, right? Depending on where someone was traumatized in their life stage, whether it was early childhood, adolescence, later in life, the underlying skill sets to be relational may have been disrupted. And so by that I mean, for example, if early on you have a client who experienced significant child abuse, so their basic ability to trust versus mistrust has been damaged, you're going to have underlying therapeutic relational rapport that's going to impact your ability to do any kind of structured timeline strategies such as cognitive behavior therapy or DBT. That's going to be really, really difficult. Whereas if you have someone who, if you have someone who is, all right, let's just cut that out. Okay, so moving right along, there are so many different types of therapy modalities. I just want to put that disclosure. These are some of the most popular that you may experience as both a therapist and as a client experience in therapy. So these are the ones that I want to touch. Today we're going to briefly discuss Okay, guys. So back to the therapeutic modalities. There are so many different types of therapeutic modalities, but there are some popular ones that tend to repeat from place to place, whether you're a client or a therapist. At some point in your therapeutic experience, you're going to interact with these. So I want to familiarize yourself so that you have an understanding in your therapy environments. So I have 5 different, I guess you can consider it 6 different stages, and these are the Kazikon different stages, right? Meaning that like Charlene just made up these stages. So level 0, I call this the contemplative stage. These are for individuals who need therapy but don't want therapy. Perhaps there's a mental health or a culture stigma. Perhaps there is a problem that is recognized and identified by loved ones, but the client themselves doesn't necessarily want to go to therapy, but an intervention has happened. Okay, everyone has sat you down and said you really need therapy, but you really don't want to go, so you're in contemplative stage around it. I would call that stage 0. And stage 0, this is going to be pre-report. I call it agency customer service stage. So if you're a therapist, this may look like a client emailing you, hey, I really want to do therapy, but I never have time. They always have these excuses. Perhaps they do one session and then they disappear every 3-4 months. that is stage 0. Those individuals are in preliminary therapy. And the best thing you can do for a person like that who's contemplative, just be supportive. Meet whatever tiny need they have when they have it. If they ask you if you're available, give them your availability. If they ask for your mission statement, give them the mission statement again. What you will find is that clients in this stage, their sense of trust has been completely shattered. And so right now, they are testing the waters, okay? They're testing the therapeutic relationship. They're really testing you. They're testing to see, is this a safe space? Can this person show up for me? And at this stage, clients are not even conscious of that they're doing this, but they're feeling the air, right? That's what we like to call it. Feeling the crowd, feeling the energy out, right? Feeling the vibes. That's what the young people would say. Now, I would definitely correlate this. I would describe this as the stray cat phenomenon. Okay. If any of my pure city folks, maybe y'all don't know, but if you've ever had a stray cat, right, roll up to the side of the house, the stray cat has needs. The stray cat has a need to be fed, it has a need to be warm, and it has a need for community, right? But of those needs, the stray cat also following Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It wants to eat, but it can't trust you, right? So what does it do? It shows up to your house, it eats, and then it leaves away. But if you are consistent as a provider and you continue to put food out, what will happen? The cat will continue to come back and the cat will continue to eat. And if you leave the door open for the cat will eventually come inside, right? And so all of my therapists and all of my scaredy cats, did y'all like that? My scaredy cats, did y'all catch that? That's stage 0, okay? What you want to do, you just want to keep being positive, keep being consistent with the messaging, with the availability. If you are a therapist and, we have individual vacancies where we can take clients, when you guys get those clients, just keep tabs on them, okay? Because eventually, whether it takes 1 year or 2, that client will eventually be ready to open up. And when they are ready to open up, you want to be available because you may be the only opportunity that person is able to give you to connect in a 5-year window, right? So you want to, just be mindful about your space and your ability to provide a time-sensitive service that this person otherwise would probably completely isolate forever, right? Okay, I gotta talk faster. I don't want these videos to be so long. And so I would consider level 1. Now, this is level 1 of therapy. And this is play therapy for children and art therapy for adults. Now, art therapy, play therapy modality, it's really specialized towards individuals who don't have a verbal skill set yet. Now, when I say a verbal skill set, yes, I literally mean the ability to convey and communicate in a audible form. And so I'm referring to infants, toddlers. You will find that clinical psychologists use play therapy often when it comes to child sex abuse. Because the children, their imaginations and their sense of reality isn't solidified. And so providing them opportunity to communicate in a way that's familiar through play is ideal for self-expression. Now, what we find is that for adults who are exceptionally repressed, perhaps they were not supported during those developmental stages and provided the support and the emotional safety needed to fully speak up and advocate for themselves and find themselves and find their personality. they are also going to equally struggle in therapy. It's not uncommon to be in a therapy session with fully licensed doctors and attorneys that still struggle to communicate in a vulnerable, personal way, right? So we will pull out the art therapy tools for those folks because it does wonders. Now, I'm going to do a whole separate series just on art therapy and play therapy. This is just an introduction because I love art therapy. Don't even get me started. Like, I just feel like art therapy belongs in every therapist curriculum. If you are not infusing art therapy into your sessions, you are doing it wrong and you should be ashamed of yourself. But because it's just so much fun and it's so effective. But I'm going to put y'all on. Don't worry. Okay. So we're moving on to the next step. So the next step is going to be EFT, which is emotionally focused therapy. And it's also narrative-based therapy. So these are the sessions where you're going to provide psychoeducation around what emotions actually are and the way that they function. I can't wait to go in about EFT. Like, it is so good. Oh my God. I can't wait to put y'all on. If you do not have a repertoire, like a true clinical and an emotionally appropriate association with emotions, you cannot communicate. The whole premise of communication is to communicate emotions. But if you have learned emotions incorrectly or how to weaponize emotions incorrectly, you're not going to be able to communicate. You're speaking a language of trauma versus a language of community, because the language that you learned, like if you grew up in a dysfunctional, traumatic environment, the vocabulary that you affix to emotions is not the same as somebody who grew up in an emotionally healthy space, right? And so I say that to mean you could be a young boy and you have been taught that to express fear is a weakness, whereas somebody else may have been taught fear is a natural emotion that provides and tells the brain to prepare or to have caution, but not to necessarily completely freeze and not proceed. So it gets interesting there. And then what we find is that oftentimes couples that are communicating, their reference point for those emotions, whether it's love, sadness, depression, anger, are just different. And so when you break it down and you learn, you can really sit, like, be active and present with your emotions, what they mean to you, how they mean in relation to other people, the people who mean the most to you, what are their emotions, and how do you interpret them before you process and relate information back. It gets so real. Y'all don't even know. Like, so good. But more on that to come. Okay. Because I can talk. All right, I'm talking y'all head off. All right, moving right along. CBT. CBT, Cognitive Behavior Therapy. Cognitive Behavior Therapy is all about connecting, identifying and connecting thoughts to behaviors in the pursuit of change behavior. It's very systematic. It's very, very, very structured. A lot of people don't like it, but I don't think that that's a fair assessment. A lot of clients aren't prepared for CBT. Oftentimes you find that CBT is introduced too soon. No, you got to really, really learn how to read your client and read people and get to know them. I'm going to help y'all get to know your clients. Don't worry. You got to really get to know people so you can meet them where they are, because I find that in most situations CBT is inappropriate. Now, if you just want a cheat sheet, like, oh, what do you think, Kazikon, when is CBT appropriate? I think CBT is appropriate when you have a client who is inappropriately attached to therapy. And so I say that to mean, yes, like, therapy is a process and like everyone should be seeing a therapist, but you as a person should be developing in therapy, meaning that your thoughts and your ideas and your approaches to the way that you manage your thoughts and ideas should be evolving for the better. But what we find is that individuals who are handicapped in their psychosocial development, the trauma can keep them stuck and lodged, right? And when we and I would say like 2 years. If you've actively been in therapy for 2 years, at least once a week, and you really trying. I don't mean just like flaking or being combative with the therapist as a defense mechanism. I mean, you're showing up, you're doing the work, you're doing the homework, and you're just not seeing improvements because of that blockage. Then CBT becomes appropriate because now you have the rapport, right? In order to be successful in therapy, rapport comes number one. And all the other modalities before now, they are still kind of focused on rapport building with the self and with the therapist. By the time you get to CBT, you got that in the bag. So it's not an issue of trust versus mistrust. It's not an issue of not knowing your client, not knowing their triggers, not knowing how capable or pre-qualified they are for therapy. You're ready to go. Like all that preliminary stuff, now the client can really get to business. Because in order for CBT to be effective, you can't get thrown off by defense mechanisms. Well, all clients have defense mechanisms, but by the time you're a good therapist, you know how to bob and move. You know what's coming. You know your client style. You know their coping mechanisms. You know their triggers. You know when they're going to run, right? So you're more adequately equipped to support them and to help them when that time comes. Then you can move on to CBT. CBT is for big boys. All right? I don't know if that was like the most... It's for big boys and big girls. CBT is for big boys and big girls who have a handle of their sense of self and they're ready for the advanced level. Okay? Okay, y'all. So moving right along with the therapy modalities, I would say that level 4 is, well, 5, because I have it step 0. But level 5 is DBT. So DBT is Dialectical Behavior Therapy. This is a type of psychotherapy that allows people to manage their emotions. So can you now understand why EFT has to come before DBT? Because if you don't even have a sense of what your emotions are, how are you going to manage them, right? But DBT is based off CBT, Cognitive Behavior Therapy. But it was originally designed to treat people who have borderline personality disorder, but it could also be used to help treat depression, anxiety, and eating disorders. DBT's 4 pillars are mindfulness, de-stress tolerance, emotional regulation, and interpersonal effectiveness. So just from those 4 pillars, can y'all interpersonal effectiveness? Hi, baby. Everybody say hi to Dubai. This is my first child. Hi, baby. All right. He wanted to come and be in the session. This is my paralegal, everybody. My paralegal. So DBT is hard. Like, most of my clients never make it to DBT because they end up healing through levels 0 through 4, 0 through 5, so they don't need it. Or, yeah, DBT is extremely hard, but it's effective. It can be done. It's just another level of structure. I like to refer to DBT almost like the takeoff stage. Definitely the final, I would say it's the final individual therapy stage for sure. And then the final level, level 5 or level 6, is family therapy. So family therapy can be any modality. It can be MST, group therapy, with the dynamics infused. Role playing is like really good for group therapy. You'd be surprised. Or just running exercises with individuals. or depending on the dynamic of group therapy, that's going to dictate how appropriate each modality is. So, for example, right, if you are dealing with a parent-child situation, an adolescent child, because, you know, with children, we got to specify. If you're dealing with a parent and an adolescent child, well, the first thing that an effective therapist would do is to meet with each entity individually. I said entity, person, each person individually, because you want to have a baseline about who they are, how are they presenting, what are they bringing to therapy, right? And if necessary, you may need to work with each individual before you bring them together for group therapy, if that makes sense. Because if each individual does not have healthy communication skills, how are you going to facilitate therapy? That doesn't make any sense, right? So there you have it. Those are the 5 or 6 therapy steps and modalities that Kazikon supports in our curriculum. And so number 0 is contemplative. Those are clients who may need therapy, but they may not want therapy. Are you leaving? You're just getting more comfortable? Okay. And then the next step is art therapy, aka play therapy. And then followed by EFT, emotionally focused therapy, followed by CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, and then finally any type of therapy that is 2 or more people. So family therapy, group therapy, yes. All right, so there you have it. Thank you guys for listening. And what's going to come next are longer videos dedicated to each particular modality. So thank you so much. And thank you for connecting with Kazikon, where healing meets education.